mean, in those early days of the multiverse, there was a lot of interest in seeing the doppelgangers teaming up. So the two Flashes, the two Green Lanterns, not so much the Hawks, but certainly the Atoms. And that would later be extended uh, to the Earth 2 Wonder Woman showing up during that time when the Earth 1 Wonder Woman was depowered. And of course, we would also get to see the Earth 2 Superman and Batman before the end of the Silver Age. And even though it took a while for the Earth 2 Batman and Superman to show up, I'm sure that fans said, well, it's just a matter of time before they appear. But it seemed like there were no plans whatsoever for the Spectre to reappear. And there are a couple of possible ideas I can throw out as to why it took a while longer for the Spectre to be reintroduced. One reason, of course, is that those working at DC offices might have thought, well, you look at the Spectre when he first came out, and he was certainly one of the most brutal characters in the DCU in terms of the level of violence, the way in which the Spectre went about punishing the evil and the guilty, and thinking about the Comics Code Authority and how it would react to seeing a character like the Spectre in print at this time. That might have scared off some writers and editors. But on the other side, there may have been those who said, well, remember how the Spectre ended with Percival Pop being the lead and the Spectre being the sidekick? Spectre became a bit of a joke. Maybe he's damaged goods at this point. In any event, it wouldn't be until 1966, January, February of 1966, when the Spectre first appeared in the Silver Age in Showcase number 60 with a story titled War That Shook the Universe. And this story opens with Jim Corrigan now having a streak of white in his otherwise red hair. And he's now a detective captain. At different points of Silver Age, he gets referred to as the captain of detectives. And I don't think that was like hyperbole or over-exaggeration. I think it means that over the past 20 years, Jim Corrigan had risen through the ranks and now had a title to go with his reputation of being a top detective. And he's stationed in Gateway City, which is interesting because that's where the John Byrne Wonder Woman resided. Kind of wondering if it's the same Gateway City. Did Byrne take inspiration from Showcase 60 in the Silver Age, or was it just a happy coincidence? In any event, it's an interesting case which Jim Corrigan is working on here in Showcase number 60. He's helping a young woman named Myra locate a missing fortune which her late uncle left for her. And so Corrigan's helping Myra, as well as a psychic who she has hired to search her uncle's mansion in search of the fortune. And the psychic isn't having any luck. He says there's no readings that I can get. And he proposes that he hold a seance the next day, which Myra agrees to. And Corrigan muses to himself that it would be so much easier if he could simply split into his physical and astral beings. But unfortunately, the Spectre has not heeded his call in a little over 20 years. And there's a couple of neat panels by artist Murphy Anderson in this issue which show the Spectre fighting crime in the 1940s, looming large over his adversaries. And Corrigan can't figure out why the Spectre isn't listening to his call. So Corrigan has, of course, moved on with his career, and it's just cases like these where he wishes that he had the assistance of his astral alter ego. So he attends the seance the next day, and fortunately, Myra and the psychic don't see this, but as the seance is proceeding, Corrigan can feel himself splitting into two personalities, and we see the Spectre separate from Jim Corrigan. And the Spectre goes off, and he actually does some investigating in the case, and he actually saves Corrigan on a couple of occasions from gangsters who are trying to recover the fortune for themselves and get rid of Corrigan in the process. And so during a quiet moment, Corrigan asks the Spectre, "What the deuce? Where have you been? I've been calling you for 20 years. So this does seem to suggest that Morphin Comics number 90 is being overlooked in the continuity, because if Jim Corrigan separated himself completely and went off to war, why would he expect that he could call upon the Spectre after getting back from the war? The Spectre was his own man who wasn't residing in Corrigan's body. But in any event, the Spectre apologizes and says, "I can't explain it. There is some force that has kept me trapped within your body, and I had no way of communicating with you." And in fact, the Spectre can feel some force against him, and he has to go out and investigate what this mysterious force is. So the story moves on, and Corrigan and the Spectre discover that there is another astral body on Earth, and this astral body is residing in the host body of one Paul Nevers. And Corrigan manages to corner Nevers and pulls out his gun, but Corrigan feels a force act against him now. It's compelling him to shoot Nevers, and he knows that he shouldn't. He just has this feeling that something wrong will happen. And the astral body pops out of the top of Nevers' head and introduces himself as Asmodeus, the Spectre's opposite number. Whereas the Spectre is an astral being of pure good, Asmodeus is an entity of pure evil. And Asmodeus explains that 20 years ago he discovered Earth and came into our realm in an effort to take it over. And so he took up residence in a host body, and that was what trapped the Spectre in Corrigan's body. Now, the plan backfired against Asmodeus because he found himself trapped in his host body as well. But a combination of the seance as well as the death of Asmodeus' first human host released both Asmodeus and the Spectre, and Asmodeus took some time to go back to his astral plane, acquire an enchanted silver bullet, which, when planted in Corrigan's gun and fired against Nevers, would release Asmodeus, but also trap Corrigan inside, trap the Spectre inside Corrigan's body forever. And so here we get this really neat battle on two theaters. We get a battle on Earth between Corrigan and Nevers, and then on the astral plane we see a fight between the Spectre and Asmodeus. And it's Jim Corrigan's ability to defeat Nevers in hand-to-hand combat that gives the Spectre's strength to beat Asmodeus and leave Asmodeus in a state of astral limbo. And Asmodeus warns the Spectre that he isn't the big bad in all of this. His staying on Earth is part of a bigger plan. But here you go. It's the reintroduction of Jim Corrigan and the Spectre. The cover is really captivating. In fact, it's drawn in such a way that no doubt it was meant to fool retailers as well as customers, because it really looks more like the Spectre issue number 60. The Spectre was given his own title font. For the cover, it appears very big, relegates the showcase logo to the upper left hand side of the cover, and then a beautifully drawn Spectre by Murphy Anderson just looming large in the foreground. And Murphy Anderson is regarded as Curt Swan's top inker on Superman. Their association, it was so close that they've been referred to by fans and historians over the years as Swanderson. But I actually prefer other inkers over Curt Swan. I find that with the Swanderson Superman, the Man of Steel comes out looking a little too old for my liking. However, as a penciler in his own right, Murphy Anderson's work was magnificent. His work on the Silver Age Hawkman, Hawkgirl was great. And certainly he's in my top 5 of Spectre artists. I would say it's Mandrake, Aparo, Bailey, and then Murphy Anderson. And so with this first appearance of the Spectre in the Silver Age, it's clear to see that this is a character who's going to be fighting battles on the astral plane. This is going to be a cosmic Spectre, given that the Comics Code Authority would not be okay with the Siegel, Bailey, Fleischer, Paro, Ostrander, Mandrake take on the Spectre. What really surprised me was that in this issue, Jim Corrigan is referred to as the host body for the Spectre. And for years, I thought that this was a concept which John Ostrander and Tom Mandrake introduced. And it's so neat to see it here originating with Gardner Fox in 1966. So Spectre next appeared in Showcase issue number 61. The title was Beyond the Sinister Barrier. And here we're introduced to another demon who the Spectre would run up against during the Ostrander Mandrake run. This is Shaitan. And it turns out that as Modus is or was a lieutenant, if you will, of Shaitan. And Shaitan wanted to take over the earthly realm by purchasing humans' shadows in exchange for getting them out of trouble or helping them find success in whatever they needed help with. I want to say at the time this was probably a thinly veiled reference to Satan and the idea of selling one's soul to the devil, but of course that wouldn't fly in the Silver Age. But then during the Ostrander Mandrake run, it would be established that Shaitan was one of any number of demons residing in hell. But again, we get another great cosmic level story with the Spectre fighting on the astral plane. Now, I'm guessing that those two appearances by the Spectre weren't enough to give DC any idea as to whether it should give the Spectre his ongoing title. And so the Spectre would actually get a third tryout issue in number 64. I'm guessing that issues 62 and 63 of Showcase are already finished, and were in the proverbial canon. So that's why the Spectre had